This car needs an AC charge, and in this video I'll explain how to do that. Whenever I start it, and I'll put a temperature gauge in the vent so we can have a visual of if it's working or not. Right now it's about ambient temperature, which is 90 to 100 degrees. I'm going to go down to the climate controls. I'm going to bring everything down to low. And then I'm also going to make sure econ mode is off. Here are the pressures of the low pressure and the high pressure side. The low pressure side is pretty low at about 20, 22, 23 psi, and then the high pressure side is about 20 psi, so they're both equal and pretty low. If you're using a can that was purchased recently, they have a reusable tip here. So there's a valve, like a Schrader valve, similar to a tire valve, where you can only use half the can and put the rest back. But you need to have the right tool to use that. This is a blunt tip, it's flat. If you have an older style one, it'll have a point, and you don't want one of those. That can break this valve. You want a newer style one, and just thread it on. Now that I've got this on the can and this turned on, this air is full of just normal air. It probably has moisture in it too. We want to bleed that out. This little Schrader valve right there, we push down on that, will bleed out the air until the gas starts coming out. When you saw that spray out, that means we know that it's all just the refrigerant gas in the tube. I have the high and low side connected. They're color oriented, so a blue cord is going to be the low side and the high is going to be the red cord. These are two different plugs, so you don't have to worry about putting the wrong one on the wrong place. They're two different styles. Make sure that this is open so that it can flow in. And you always put the gas in on the low side, the blue side. We have the high side, the red one, turned off, and then we're going to open up the low side. Let some of that pressure in. You can see it flowing through there, and you can also see the pressure climbing on the high side. Now the temperature outside is about 80-90 degrees, and that's roughly the PSI that I'm going to fill it up to. So I'm going to go up to around 80 PSI and see if it changes the temperature in the cabin. And I'll just close it up. Now just take these off. Take off the gas, we open this, then we can twist off the can. There's going to be a little bit of air left in there, let it bleed off. The pressures are correct over in the engine, but there's still something wrong. The air is still blowing hot, so I'm going to use OBD11 to scan the codes, see if there's any codes in the HVAC system, and look at some data that it might be able to give me. I'll go into control blocks, go into the air conditioning control block. That'll load, and then what I'll do is I'll look at the fault codes first, see if there's any fault codes that have loaded, so I'll look at faults. So there's no active faults. Now I'll go to live data, and I'll just go to general information channel, which is the first one, and that'll have some data that I can look at. Here you have the AC valve, which is the N280 sensor, the current, the amps that's flowing through it, and you have the duty cycle. Both of those are 0. As soon as I turn on the AC, just turned it on, you can see that bump up to about 0.4 amps, and the duty cycle is at 75%. I'm going to turn that back off. And then the high pressure signal, which is the G65 sensor, 22%, and then the whole system's pressure is 6. And that's 6 bars, so that sounds about right for what it needs to be. In live data, I'm also interested in compressor shutoff criteria. And this has different compressor codes for if something's not working, if the compressor is not turning on. There's multiple reasons it won't turn on. Right here is one. You have different numbers, so you're really only going to be looking at the top one here. The current shutoff criteria is a number 7. So if we look in the description, number 7 is compressor off, system deactivated by driver. So that means it's just the controls are off here. If I turn them on, that turns to 0. Which means, if we look at the description, a number 0 is compressor on. That means, point blank, the compressor should be on. With this, we're able to look at some of the diagnostics, look at some of the numbers, and it'll help us get an idea of what the problem is. There's definitely still a problem here, so we'll need to run some diagnostics and try to figure that out.